Welcome to CareerView. This is a podcast where we ask questions students want to know when it comes to pursuing a career path. I'm your host, Niraj Shamal, and each episode I'll ask questions on behalf of students across the country from secondary schools and universities what they want to know when it comes to pursuing their dream job. For this episode, we'll be asking our top questions that have been submitted by students on our CareerView website who are aspiring to become engineers. Now, to answer these questions, we have 26-year-old senior consultant Vanessa Liew, who is a mechanical engineer by background, but works as a consultant across technology, strategy, and transformation for Delloite, a global consulting firm. Now, Vanessa is a prime example of someone who has studied mechanical engineering, but not necessarily is in the typical role of a mechanical engineer. I am so glad to have her here. So, let's get into it. Vanessa, it's so great to have you here. How's everything going?
Pretty good. Quite busy lately, but kind of enjoying, the ups and downs. And it's been busier, so that it's definitely manageable at the moment.
Very busy period indeed. I think it's for a lot of different people at this time of the year. But more importantly, really great to have you despite how busy it is. And, before we get into our questions asked by students, the first thing I wanted to know from yourself is the work you do today. Did you ever imagine doing that from when you first started your career and journey as an engineer?
No, absolutely not. I didn't end up being in the role of an actual engineer, but what I do like about my current role is that I still am able to apply a lot of the things I learnt from engineering school, a lot of problem solving stuff, and kind of like really exciting for me, and I'm glad that I'm on the path that I am now.
That's incredible. So jumping into our questions that we have for you, Vanessa, the first question that we have for you is, how did you decide what field of engineering you wanted to pursue?
So I studied mechanical engineering at UWA. So that was a undergrad in science and then a postgrad in mechanical engineering. I think the way that I got to Mech Eng is that I wanted to be a little bit more of a jack of all trades, and I wasn't comfortable in specialising just yet. And what I heard about mechanical engineering is that you get to do a little bit of everything, and then obviously if you want to, study even further, you can do that as well. But I kind of like the variety, and because we're in WA as well, I know that mechanical engineers are quite popular in the mines, and that seemed like a very realistic kind of career path for me at the time. So
making it more broad for you was the main decision making. Where did you get that information from? Where did you hear that? And more importantly, when you studied it, was that the case?
Where I heard it from, I attended quite a few career fairs. Luckily, I had a family friend who was a friend of my cousin's that was an engineer, who was a girl, and my dad made me talk to her when I was quite young to try and get a bit of insight. Other than that, did a lot of reading, I suppose, on the internet, but nowhere really concrete,
I'm glad it's worked out. So next question that we have for you, Vanessa, is how did you know that engineering was the right fit for you?
Yeah, I think so. Once I got into the coursework of engineering, a lot of the physics components of it helped me understand how the world around me worked, and that was really interesting to me. I liked that component of engineering. It was hard, I'll admit that. I wasn't the best at maths at high school, it wasn't my top subject. I was really worried about actually failing that one. But I made it in the end and somehow made it through. A lot of hard work definitely went into it. And yeah, I guess when I looked at the coursework for chemical engineering or electrical, it seemed a little bit too specialised for me. And I wasn't crazy about electronics, I wasn't crazy about chemicals, I guess, in general. But machinery and stuff like that was more apparent in our environment. So that's why I thought it was a bit more interesting. So
was that something always of passion? Were you always passionate about those things, or was engineering just a way to do a lot of different things? I'm trying to understand, where did that first focus for engineering come into place for you?
Oh, yeah. I think so. It's always been ingrained in me somehow. Growing up, I was very interested in science and the ways things worked. I never really gravitated towards business units or anything like that. I was actually quite artsy as a kid as well. So in some aspects, I guess, engineering drawings and stuff like that actually was quite interesting and finite element analysis and things like that, make pretty, pictures on a program, like that seemed interesting too. So
really good to know. Very interesting as well. So next question that we have for you, Vanessa, is did you have a backup plan? Is there any point when you were studying engineering, like, okay, this is my backup plan in case it doesn't work out?
Good question. I think I've always wanted to be kind of in the STEM world. So I'd say no, I didn't have a backup plan, but I knew with the kind of uni structure of, having a bachelor's and then going into like actual engineering, like with the bachelor's degree, at least that was kind of general. I was like, I'm sure I can at least get through this one. So no, I didn't have a backup plan.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. I mean, that you were fairly confident with the fact that you are going to pursue STEM. But what draws you into STEM, apart from just being the passionate, finding it really interesting? You mentioned it was difficult as well. You put in a lot of hard work. I can't imagine it being all enjoyable, or was it enjoyable?
I think STEM was a big push as well when I was at school. I remember it, like women in engineering being like quite a thing. I think there was a talk at school one time and I was like, I guess that would be kind of cool to do. And also I think an aspect of it was like engineers make a lot of money apparently. So that was a enticing part of the career choice.
No, and that's
the study choice.
Yeah, and it is something that many people factor in terms of their decision making in terms of a job and the money and the rewards that come with it as well, which I'm sure we'll explore a little bit later.
Yeah.
Next question that we have for you, Vanessa, is how can one prepare for university life studying engineering? And maybe you can share some of your insights of your experience studying engineering and how you kind of coped throughout all the ups and downs that you went through.
I think, to be very honest, I never thought I was very good at engineering. From the get-go, like I said, maths was quite difficult for me. Like a lot of the principles, even though I was interested in it, like the theory and actually the technical part of it was challenging to absorb. Maybe it's because I was like, young 20s. Maybe I didn't have the right balance at the time. But I think reflecting on my younger self, to prepare for uni, I would suggest, making sure that you allocate enough time during the week to your studies. Doesn't matter how you want to do it. If you want to do it late at night, do that. Whatever works for you. There's no one right answer to how you should study. But I think also another aspect is making sure that you have the right people around you. Obviously, having a good team to work with makes the work much easier.
Much easier, yeah.
And you can help each other with your
absolutely.
assignments.
No, and that's such a good point,
Yeah.
I guess. That's such a good point to have a good group of people with you. But probably just staying on that, if you had to look back in your time at university, was there anything you would do differently in terms of how you approach the study, how you would prepare? Is there any things you would have done differently to probably get more out of the whole university experience for studying engineering?
I think I only figured out later in my study life that I enjoyed studying at night, and I enjoyed studying at night in the library, kind of like alone in the quiet space, right? Like I really needed to be in the zone to focus. So I would probably recommend kind of understanding what kind of study patterns work for you. Like you can't just sit down for 4 hours and smash out things. So some people can, but definitely try, like not being too hard on yourself as well while you figure all that kind of stuff out. A lot of people are like quite new to that kind of structure because when you get to uni, no one's telling you that you have to go to class. No one is telling you that your assignment is due in a week. There's a lot of accountability that falls back on yourself. And I think that transition from high school to uni, because you have such a big break in between as well, it's easy to get complacent and easy to kind of slip. So as long as you stay on top of all kind of like admin stuff, little habits like that go a long way.
Wow, really good to know. Next question that we have for you is, how did you find a job once you graduated? What was the process for you and what did you do?
I just made sure that I got my applications in early. I got friends to review my cover letters, find as many example resumes as you can, go on LinkedIn and just kind of scope out other people's profiles, what kind of words do they use, how do they position their resumes and structure it, and what kind of roles am I actually interested in. I think for that part it's a little bit hard because you're still too young to pick a role, but at least you know like what kind of company you align with. I think that's important. For me, because I guess I felt like I was doing a lot of it by myself. I kind of just went for the big mining companies, you know, the Rios, the BHPs, I think I did BP, Shell, all those kinds of stuff. I figured like since I'm studying engineering, I need to be in the field. So I was like, I need to either be in the mines or on an oil rig. So I did my vacation work with BHP for 2 summers because I actually applied early the first time, which I think is also another strong tip that I would give students. Like, apply as soon as you can. Do not delay it, because the more experience you can get, like the clearer that path will feel for you.
Yeah.
And like an internship isn't just about the company testing whether or not you're the right fit. It's also you testing whether or not this company is the right fit for you. So while I was actually waiting for my grad offer from BHP, I wanted some extra money during winter, to be perfectly honest, the winter break. So I went and did a shorter vacation time at Delloite, which is only 4 weeks. So I was like, cool, like 4 weeks of work, and then I have a couple of weeks to hang out and just chill.
Sure.
So that was like city-based, as opposed to BHP being, my time at BHP being on-site both times, one FIFO and one residential. So I gave it a red-hot go, 12 weeks each. But I ended up going with Delloite after all.
Wow.
Taking like a massive pay cut. But I think in hindsight, I kept telling myself, I was like, even though I enjoyed the mines, like I got along with everyone, the work was fine, but when I got to Delloite, I think I learned a lot more about myself than I thought I would.
Wow.
And I saw kind of myself developing faster and better at Delloite than I would have at BHP.
That's absolutely incredible, and that's a direct result of what you just said in terms of applying as early as possible, trying a range of different things, and then seeing how do you feel and how do you react towards it. And the fact that you ended up choosing Delloite for those reasons is actually incredible.
Yeah. There were actually, the team that I'm currently in at Delloite is almost, I think a third of us are engineers.
Wow.
So while I was doing my vacation work, I actually like went for coffee catch-ups with each of these people and, you know, asked them like, why did you go to management consulting and not industry? Like, I'm at a crossroad right now as well. I need some advice. Yeah. So I got a lot of the advice there, and basically like, I think this management consulting job suits my personality a lot more. And I think the lifestyle change as well was huge. Being, you know, 22, 23, I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend the next 4 or 5 years on site on a 2-on-1 rotation. Like, it didn't, although I'd be, you know, making a lot of money, I was like, no point if I can't spend it or spend time with my family. Yeah. So that was a big factor for me.
And I'm glad it's worked out so far. Vanessa, the next question that we have for you is, how different is working in an industry compared to your time studying engineering? And you're actually a very interesting case. You work in management consulting, which isn't always, I mean, it is a typical pathway for engineers, but not something people typically associate in terms of coming out of engineering.
Yes. Yeah, very true. My job currently, as compared to studying, I would say way more fun and engaging. I think the work is very similar in the sense that we do, you know, we do a lot of group work, so it kind of feels like a group assignment at uni, except that everyone actually cares about the group assignment, and you know, we pull in all the hours and everyone pulls their weight most of the time. Like, in my experience, it's always been a great experience working with other Delloite team members. Yeah. There's a lot of resources available as well to us, so we always feel supported, even though it's maybe it's an area that I'm not familiar with. There's always going to be someone in the business who's done it before, and it's really easy to just send them a message like, hey, can we connect about this topic? I think at uni, when you're given an assignment, it's easy to feel lost, even though like you do have, I guess, like tutorials and workshops that you go to. But I think the fact that everyone else around you gives a crap about the work as well, and just the impact that that work is making to the organisation that you're working with, the client, that motivates you a lot more to want to do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that it's very similar to engineering in terms of what you studied in the group work, but the difference is that people care obviously when you're working in industry. But I still think that to some extent you building your behaviours and habits within university is going to be a very important aspect in terms of how you want to work in the industry one day. And that's something that I truly believe in terms of the university life and working in industry. They have that similarity in terms of how do you develop your behaviours there to come all the way to industry at some point.
Yeah.
Next question that we have for you, Vanessa, is what is the salary range when starting out and how far can it go? I mean, you've talked about already the fact that you took a massive pay cut after deciding what you wanted to do. How much was that pay cut? And if you don't mind sharing some details around that for our listeners who really want to know that around your pathway, what does that look like for them and what is the trajectory from then on in terms of money?
Absolutely. I'll start off in the industry space, I guess. What I was expecting as a grad at BHP, doing a FIFO kind of rotation, definitely at least six figures, including that kind of relocation allowance or whatever you call it for, kind of basically like a lifestyle allowance because you're giving up that time with your family to be on site for that long. So I didn't get an actual figure because I never got the contract. I turned it down before I got the contract. It was all verbal. Yeah. But I know that from like my current peers, kind of in the same age group in different lines, like in industry, definitely above six figures. Wow. When I started as a grad at Delloite, it was 58,000. Yes. Yeah. And that was including super as well. So that's the I guess the small downside of management consulting is that super is not on top of that amount. It's actually baked in. That means your actual is a little bit lower than that. Wow. Yeah. And Delloite being one of the biggest management consulting companies in the world. I know. That was your starting point. I know. How did you react to that? How was that? I think once I talked to enough people in the firm and I came to realize actually the development structure and pathways within my role, I was only expected to stay at grad for about 18 months. And to me, I was like, oh, maybe this is kind of like a probation period, I can spare 18 months to try it out. And then you go to consultant and then you get, I think I was at 75 at consultant. Currently, and then I think 2 years after that, I became a senior consultant, which I am now. And my most recent pay review, I went up to 105. Wow. So in 3 and a bit years, I've kind of doubled that. Yeah. But I think the breadth of experience and knowledge that I've learnt across, the 10 or so projects that I've been able to be on and the people I've been able to meet and network with, like that is priceless. Wow. I get to face off with the C-suite, CEOs, CIOs of our clients and, my firm trusts me to like lead those discussions and interact with them directly, which I appreciate the trust and I think that's great. But, being able to network at that level when I'm so junior in the firm, that was pretty priceless to me. Absolutely. And to know within the 3 years you've had such amazing progress, even though it starts at a very, let's say a very low amount compared to what you were getting offers at other places, you still made a decision to go about it and now getting this exposure, which would probably be invaluable in the rest of your career, anywhere you go. So. And I think definitely having the Delloite name on my resume will be a huge leverage point for me if I decide to go into industry in future, if I want to change careers or change pathways. Just having that Big Four kind of backing and background, that's really invaluable. So for people listening out there, it's that brand reputation you get with certain companies that can help you go above and beyond well down into your career. And then secondly, as you touched upon, Vanessa, just the fact that you realise what you want and the experiences sometimes outweigh really about the monetary value that you're getting at the end of the day, especially this early in your career. Next question that we have for you is, what keeps you motivated on the job? It's hard sometimes to find that motivation, but at the end of the day, it's not just about kind of what kind of impact our work makes. I think for me, it's more about the personal connections that I'm making with my team, the client. Like, work aside, like I love collaboration. I love big brains working together. Like, that gets me through the day, and I want to be part of that kind of crowd. So, to be able to upskill myself or make sure that I'm performing to the best of my ability so that I can kind of like play in that league almost, bettering myself, developing myself all the time.
Yeah.
And then also I think it's important to be developing the people in your team. So I enjoy doing a lot of kind of practice contribution stuff where we're trying to, grow the culture, make sure that people are having fun, making sure that people are getting the right learning experiences as well and opportunities to grow their skills or capabilities. So I think people is what makes me motivated.
Amazing. Really good to know. It's not so much about the work.
No.
Or it's just the people.
I'd be lying if I said that.
It's the people.
Yeah.
It's the people. Very interesting. Last question that we have for you, Vanessa, is would you consider doing anything different in the future or even now?
For now, I think I'm really happy where I am. I think I alluded to the development structure at Delloite before. You get a coach and there's very open conversations around remuneration, the milestone date that you have where you want to go for a promotion. Like you can accelerate or decelerate as much as you want in that space. I really appreciate that flexibility. So I enjoy what I do as a consultant, like super interesting, super fun. The people that are involved are also super cool. So I'm enjoying it.
Really great to know, Vanessa. And that wraps up all our questions that we have for you. Thank you so much, as always. For our listeners who have more questions for Vanessa that did not feature on our list today and would like to connect with her, you can visit our website, careerview.com.au. This is where you'll find Vanessa's profile and you can email her with more questions as usual, which I'm sure she's happy to answer when she can, even in her very busy schedule. But with every episode, don't forget to submit your questions to our young professionals who've been there and done that and can share their experiences and hopefully help yours. Final thing from me is that if you had to give any words of advice for someone who's similar on that journey, on that pathway, what would you say to them in terms of entering this field and exploring career opportunities in this whole domain?
I think the advice that I would give is definitely to go do an internship. That's the only way that you can, really figure out whether or not engineering is right for you. You might like the techie stuff. You might not like going to site. You might not like doing designs. There's so many facets of engineering, and it will be hard to pick one. But I think the more people you are able to connect with, while you're doing your VAC work, really be embedded in the team is the best way to find out. And I think really important not to be too hard on yourself. And if you think engineering is not for you, don't be afraid to switch paths. I'd probably recommend switching early so you don't waste too much time at uni, but don't force yourself through it, I think. I think I did a little bit, and then once I got to Delloite, I figured you don't need an engineering degree to do what I'm doing, but I still appreciate the skill set that I got through all the problem-solving work, all the maths and all the physics at school. So it's still applicable, but not compulsory, and I'm sure that each individual person will be able to bring some sort of perspective from other parts of their lives that might not be applicable from uni. And so, the breadth and the diversity of knowledge, don't take that for granted.
I absolutely agree with you, Vanessa. Very, very valuable advice. Thanks for being here.
Very welcome. Thank you.